Is there anyone here that thinks they are really on it with data? Like if they love it. It's like, I just live the data.
Mouth.
It's amazing. Do you mean you want to be? Oh, I thought you were putting your hand up.
You are.
So, I'm going to try and make data a little bit more interesting for you. And there's this thing called PlotTheDots, which is actually it's not our invention, it's not the improved practice, although we do teach this. We've stolen it from a team in NHS Improvement, NHS England, who have been around the whole country training people in how to present data in a really meaningful and accessible way, to try and take the mystery out of data, make it a bit more interesting and get people to understand how to use data. So we've taken it, we've adapted it a bit, we can't help ourselves, we've made it our own. Okay? But if you at the end of ask the same question at the end of this, who really likes data, and anyone that puts their hand up, then you might want to look on the hub and sign up for our data courses. Who remembers it? You do?
Oh yeah.
What? That's it? Yes, you got it. Okay. It's a while back right now, isn't it? This is a good, 20 years ago? So should we play? Do you like my card?
No, change it.
Oh yeah.
Change it.
You want to change it?
Yeah.
I can't remember that rule.
You can change it first. You change it after that. Oh, no, I can't. Yeah, you can change it first.
Okay.
Change it.
I don't know whether I want to know. Hey.
What should we go with? Ace is high? Should we say ace is high?
Lower.
Lower than ace?
Lower.
Higher over there. Everyone say higher.
Lower.
Oh, we got lower. You ready?
Change it.
Higher.
Change it when
Lower 7. Higher over here. What we say?
Yes.
Go on, one more. Higher or lower than 10? Lower than 10.
Order one.
Hold it frozen.
How are you deciding?
Probability.
Guessing.
I'm a carter.
How much luck is involved in getting that right? A lot of luck, yeah?
Yeah.
Nearly all luck. It's just chance, really, whether you get that right or wrong. And yet, for some reason, we use the same thinking about our data relating to our services and patient activity as we do when we're playing your cards right. We think about data in terms of, is this month's data higher or lower than last month? And so therefore, is the service better or worse? Are you still with me? Are you still with me at the back? Are you still with me? So is it better or worse than last month's data? And then we go and put these red and green things on our data, don't we, and say, oh, it's gone down, it's worse, it's red. But we just really very often comparing this month's performance with last month's performance and making some kind of judgment call on the whole service based on 2 data points. So this bit of training is about how can we look at data and interpret it with a bit more intelligence than we do for AC's play your card right. So some of the things we're going to have a whistle-stop tour of are the limitation with the popular methods of data reporting that we currently use, such as RAG tables, those look at last month, it's gone up and down trends. We're going to talk a bit about something called variation and a couple of different sorts of variation. And we're going to mention how can you use this thing called a PlotTheDots chart to make some sensible decisions about what we actually do. So using data to provide some meaningful decision making to actions and improvements that we take in our services. And also give you a bit more confidence in when you see data, so that you can actually think, okay, I normally shy away from data, but actually I've got a few insights as to how I can actually make this useful to me. So just give a bit more confidence with data. So has anyone seen data presented in this way before? Some nods around the room. It's fairly typical. A RAG table, red, amber and green sort of table of performance. Referral to treatment performance by specialty, and then split by month. Do you find that easy to interpret? What do you, when you see that data, what do you sort of think about? Just see the colour, yeah. So you have kind of, there's a load of red there, they must be doing really badly. That's green, okay, they're doing pretty well. So if we take, I'm just going to take one of those lines now and zoom in on it a bit and talk about a little bit more. So just one of those lines. This is the proportion of patients who left without being seen in ED. So basically, the patients who gave up waiting. Yeah? And the target is we want to be less than 5%. So we don't, ideally, it would be great if no one gave up, but a realistic target is we don't want people to be leaving without being seen. And here's the performance. So it's 2.9% in October 16, and over the months, it's all green. Now, how confident are you that we're going to hit that target in the following month? Very confident. I am as well, because it's all green. I mean, it looks really good. Those numbers are well under the target. The green is really shouting to me loudly. In fact, they've never failed. Never failed that target. It's always been green.
The last 4 months has been increasing.
Right. So you've got a bit of an eye for the detail, and you've spotted something there, which is kind of hidden away a bit by the fact that everything's green, it all looks great. So it would be natural, if you were looking at that in a sea of other performance data like we were on the previous slide, you might not spot that detail, and you think, yeah, that's all good, let's divert our attention somewhere else. However, if we take that same data, the same line of data, and present it in this way, it starts to show very clearly the point you were making, that over the last few months there's been a change, something is happening with that data. And it's actually starting to creep up towards that 5% target. So how confident are you now that that team is going to hit the target next month? Not quite as confident.
Heading down.
It's heading down at the end, isn't it? But overall there's a bit of a trend where it's moving upwards. That's not just by chance, is it? Something's happening there. Let's not play your cards right. And yet we were using in the previous slide, we were using that kind of red or green, up and down from last month's approach. So this is a way of trying to draw out some meaningful interpretation. Let's take another example. So red can sometimes hide improvement. In that case, green was hiding something that was going sort of downward in its performance. So here's another set of red data. Oh, it's all doom and gloom. This is terrible. They need to completely reform their process. Clearly, something wrong with that. When you present it in this way, although they're still not hitting the target, which is why it's still red, there's something going on there that's really meaning performance is actually improving dramatically. And maybe rather than going in and saying, you guys are a load of rubbish, you need to scrap what you're doing and start again, they just might need a bit more encouragement to say, great work, your performance is amazing over the last few months, you were doing something right, what else do you need? A bit of support to try and just a bit more and you'll be on target. You can't see that hidden in the typical way that we show data. So I'm going to talk about two different sorts of variation. Variation, the fluctuation in data, it moves up and down, it changes. When I write my name, would you believe this is actually how I sign my name? If you write your name a few times, naturally, like you sign your name, it's pretty similar, isn't it? Every time you write it, it's quite similar. your signature is pretty simple. But there's slight differences, aren't there? You're not a computer, so you can't sign your name absolutely perfectly every time. There's a bit of variation. We would call that common cause. It's just natural feelings. It was hotter that day, the pen felt a bit different. I accidentally had caffeine in my coffee and I didn't mean to. So you get a bit of variation naturally. We call that common cause variation. Now, close your eyes for a minute. I'm going to write my name again. Close your eyes just for a minute. Okay, have a look. What's happened here? I've written my name again. Does that look like common cause variation? What do you reckon's happened? Yes. Did you peek? Did you peek? I did. I used my left hand. Something very specific has changed to cause the results to look different. That's not common cause. That's special cause. Special cause variation. Something very specific has happened. Okay? Now, when we're looking at data, we need to try and work out whether the data is fluctuating due to common cause or special cause. So common cause is just built into a system. It's the natural variation in your normal day-to-day work. It affects everyone. It's things like the weather. If we start reacting, this is an actual word, by the way, if we start reacting to data every time it's common cause variation, the slightest little fluctuation, and we start jumping up and down and sending the whole exec team down to ED or down to maternity, say, look at your data, what's going on, why has this happened? Spuddling, do you know what it means? It's actually in the dictionary, apparently. Spuddling is to make a lot of fuss about trivial things as if they're important. And it's very easy to do that if we start getting mixed up with common cause and special cause variation. We start treating common cause as if it's really important, start spuddling, wastes an awful lot of energy and causes a lot of stress. Spuddling leads to tampering. So we need to try and minimise and reduce the chance of this happening. And we can do that by representing our data in a more meaningful way. When it comes to data, don't be a spuddler. So how are we going to work it out? Well, as human beings, we have an amazing superpower for detecting whether we think something is special cause or common cause. Is it just a natural variation in the world? Has something specific happened? We've got a bit of an instinct, a sixth sense about this. Let me show you. Who wants to play heads or tails? Who wants to play heads or tails?
Can I look at the coin first?
You can.
That was meant to
Yeah, Lucy then. You didn't weigh it. Right then. Lucy. Heads or tails? Heads it is. And have another go? Head. Tail.
You've got 2 shots, Lucy.
3. This is going well. For Lucy.
Yes, she's won £1.50 off the third time.
Heads.
So you can have a punch.
How many is that?
Lucy, will you take the lucky
Okay.
There is a pattern coming up. Head tail.
Again. Right, what's that now? How many?
6.
6. How are we feeling? We're in that.
I don't think you're showing that.
Lucy has got superpower.
Okay.
I think you only showed it when it actually fell on
So you're getting suspicious then, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
You don't trust me anymore?
No.
No,
Anymore?
Okay, let's go one more.
Tails.
Tails it is. So that's 7 in a row, right?
No.
No way, Susan, so there's no way. It's just disbelief now. Your intuition of common cause and special cause is kicking in really hard and it's saying, something's going on here. So we don't believe that was common cause just for luck of the draw. You're saying you might think there's some special cause, some extenuating circumstances. So what is that special cause to me?
You.
Me? Yeah, I'm alive. Don't buy a lottery ticket. It was interesting how your suspicion started to rise at about 4, 5, but by 7, you were like, not having this. Yeah? Does anyone remember this scene in Friends? Who loses 57 coin tosses in a row? Head she wins, tails I lose.
Yeah.
The reason that 7 is important is just a matter of probability and chance, okay? So if you toss a coin once, it's 50-50. If you do it twice, it's 25% of getting it right both times. And the more times you do it, so the odds reduce and reduce until you get to 7, and the chances of getting 7 right in a row like you did is less than 1 in 100, less than 1%. So that's why our intuition is saying, don't believe you. So 7 is significant for that reason. Now, unfortunately, computers don't have intuition. It's a bit of a drawback, a bit of a flaw in computing. They don't have intuition. So they have to have rules. So in order to get a spreadsheet to help us work out whether something is special cause or common cause, we need to program into the spreadsheet some rules that help it tell us. Are you with me, Slaver? Oh, sorry, there's the transition. So there's just 4 simple rules. They're not too bad, actually, to understand. And you don't have to work them out. A spreadsheet can do this. There's already a spreadsheet that we can share with you that will do this. You plug the data in and it will tell you whether something special cause or common cause. But just, it's interesting to know how is it doing it. So if there is a single data point that is so far removed from the average, the chances of it happening are less than 1%, then it will flag it up like that and put a coloured dot on it. If it's so unlikely, less than 1% likely, then it will say, that's a suspicious point, I'm going to flag that up. It's probably special cause, not common cause. If there's 2 out of 3 points very near to that limit of the 1%, then again, it would say something strange happening here. That's special cause. And then the bottom 2 is if you get a run of 7 points, it's always 7, if you get a run of 7 points or more that are above the mean or below the mean, then it's very unlikely that's just common cause. It's probably special cause going on. Or if you get a run, so if you month on month, week on week, day on day, for 7 times, the data is moving down or up, then the spreadsheet is going to tell you you've got special cause there, right? You need to look into that, something's happening. So, introducing something called, I'm only going to say this once, the statistical process control chart, which, as most people can't say, statistic, there you go. Most people can't say that though. We call it PlotTheDots, because that's a lot nicer. And we're trying to make data friendly. So we call it PlotTheDots. But if you ever hear SPC or statistical process control, it's the same thing. You know what it is because you think, yeah, that's PlotTheDots. That's what people are. There's some component parts to it. So what does a PlotTheDots chart look like? Well, it's a time series set of data. So time is always along the bottom. It doesn't have to be monthly. It can be weekly. It can, but it's an interval of data that's happening periodically. It should be daily. It could even be hourly. In ED, they do look at hourly data. You put an average line through the middle. You plot your points. Put an average through the middle. And then these upper and lower process limits. Again, this does it for you. But these are important because this is the 99% of data will fit between those limits. And if something is outside them or close to them, then you know something suspicious is happening. Okay? In order to get some decent analysis and make some sensible conclusions, we need quite a bit of data. You need quite a few data points. And I reckon no less than 15. You know, if you're looking at data over the last 2 or 3 weeks, and it's weekly, you haven't got enough really to decide whether something significant is happening. So 15 data points is something that you just need to, if it's less than that, then don't pay too much kudos to it. But of course it doesn't have to be monthly, so if you need more data points, you could just say, okay, let's collect the data weekly instead, and we'll have the same period, but we've got more data points. And then the target line. So sometimes you want to be above a target, sometimes you want to be below a target, but we need to put that target on the chart. So that's the components of the PlotTheDots chart. Simple as that. This is just a recap. So, so you don't have to count the dots. The spreadsheet is going to turn them a different colour for you when it's special cause. So that makes it easier. So here, this is on the left here, this has triggered a rule. Anyone see what rule has been triggered? 7 points, yeah, 7 points, but what? 7 points above mean, spot on. And in this case, it's turned them orange. So that means that the target, actually we have to get the target on there, but the target must have been a low number, we want to be lower. The fact it's a load of points above the mean, further away from the target, that's orange, meaning special cause, but having a bad effect on the data, a bad reason, and we want to avoid. Whereas here, we've got 7 or more points below the mean, so that's triggered the rule again, but this time it's blue. So that's good improvement happening there that we want to pay attention to. What can we learn from that? Because something's changed, clearly dramatically. So let's see if we can learn what's happened about that's caused that. So we call it periods of concern and periods of improvement. There are some badges that it creates. Now I'm not going to go into the badges now. I don't know if they're in the books or not, but we've certainly got some handouts we can give to you about these badges. But it just helps you interpret the data by calling out whether it's good special cause change or bad. And there's a few just like icons that make it easier to understand. So here's a couple of examples just to get us in the swing of this. If you saw some data like those grey dots, you can see the process limits and the target line at the top there. So we want to be above that target. What conclusions or decisions are you going to make about that process? Supposing you are responsible for that process and the performance of that process, how are you feeling about that?
The target is too high.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, the target's too high. We can never reach it. Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. The
But it's
target.
getting better at the end, so
Yeah,
whatever's
yeah.
changed
Yeah,
is
okay.
for the better, because
Yeah.
it's gradually going up.
How many points do we need before we're really convinced it's getting better?
Seven.
Not quite, is it?
No,
It's maybe thinking,
Yeah.
hopefully, but
Yeah.
not quite.
no.
So, can that process reliably hit the target? So if you were responsible for that, what would you do? Would you sit back and wait for a few more data points? Or what would you do?
Try and reach the target, change something to try and reach the target.
Absolutely. Change something.
Yeah.
If you sit back and watch, he's going to be reliably won't hit the target. So this badge here, it means the system is expected to consistently miss the target. So we're now using data to forecast what's going to happen in the future. And this actually tells us the process is not capable. No doubt about it, the staff are, but it's the process that's wrong. So we need to change the process, like you say, we need to change something. Yeah? So we've now used data to make a decision about whether we take action. Let's try another one. So this one, again, the data is sitting between those process limit is quite a bit above the target, what do you think the chances are of that process hitting the target next month? Are you confident? How do you think? Yeah? Confident? Yeah. Because 99% of the time, 99% of the time it's going to sit between those process limits, which means we've exceeded the target. So what would you do with that process? It's a capable process. Might go and congratulate the team on some good work, and maybe go and see how we could learn, replicate, and transfer it somewhere else, because it's good stuff.
Strip out some resources.
Yeah, just really put it under pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a capable process. Okay. One more. So these dots, again, common cause variation. There's nothing's been highlighted as special cause. Common cause variation between the process limits. But the target is kind of bouncing around above and below the target. Now that really is a bit like play your cards right. Because you can't really be sure whether that's going to hit the target or not. Just common cause could cause it to go either way. What would you do with that price? Not a bad shout, actually. But buy donuts. The price is probably okay. Maybe the team just need a bit of a morale boost. It's not far off.
See if there's anything different between the highs and the lows.
Yeah.
If there's any different actions.
Yeah. I suppose it depends how.
They're
really-
staying quite close, so
Yeah. So it depends how reliably you need it to hit the target, but it might be a smaller adjustment. There might be some minor improvements you could make to tighten up the efficiency. You're not talking about scrapping it and starting again. Okay.
Well, something like that, if you go in all guns blazing, you could quite make it, you know, if you said you're not hitting your target. If you go in and say you're not hitting your targets each month, it's all out, you're going to make it worse, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, because you're really tuned in to the human factors in this, so you're thinking, how are the team performing, and which is
I've always said if your staff morale is high and your staff are loving what they're doing, your patient experience is better, and it's all a better process. So if you've got miserable staff, you ain't going to get happy about it.
I agree with you 100%. I suppose
I don't need food.
what I'm trying to get to think about though is the focus on the process rather than the people. So in our improvement terms, we always think about a process that needs transformation rather than the people. But I do agree, the performance of the team is absolutely dependent on their morale and their sense of worth and value, and you can do a lot to make that better. But that's a slight distraction from where we're going.
Well,
with
but if you haven't got the processes in place, it doesn't matter how happy you
Exactly.
are, you're not going to do it.
Exactly that. So that process that was consistently failing, doesn't matter how many donuts you buy and how good they feel,
No.
they're handicapped
Yeah.
by the fact that process is just rubbish.
Yeah, a bad system will beat a good person every day of the week. You've got
I think
no
we're
principles.
finding that.
Anyway, let's not get
Sorry.
sidetracked too much. That's okay. Because I'm losing them at the back now. So I need to find some other game to keep going. Still got Tom, that's good. Right. So, here we go.
Showing chocolate, they're all.
That usually works, doesn't it? Yeah. What's your favourite chocolate bar at the back on your phone? Are you just checking what Sorry to pick on you. What's your favourite chocolate bar?
I was actually trying to get my graph up
Oh yeah.
to see it. It's alright.
What's your favourite chocolate bar?
Mine. I like those.
Yeah.
Oh, that's solid 12.
12, okay. So, imagine that we all now work at Cadbury's. We're taking a sabbatical from our NHS work.
Job satisfaction.
Job satisfaction. We now work at Cadbury's. And we work in the marketing department. We've been given a budget. Okay. And we have now got quite a significant amount of money to invest to promote and improve the sales, but we've only got enough money to pick 2 chocolate bars to really give them a boost. Still that one. Not as good as yours. So we need to work out. We need to look at some data and decide how we're going to invest our marketing money. Which 2 chocolate bars are we going to invest in? So we'll go and speak to the informatics team at Cadbury's. Can you show us the sales figures, please, for these 6 chocolate bars? All right. They come back with this. Any good? What are you going to do? Do you know what you're investing in?
Freddo and a twirl.
Okay.
What, fudge?
Fred and
Fudge and a whisper.
Can we change the way it's presented?
Ah, okay. So you want to go back to the informatics saints. Thanks,
Yeah.
but no
Yeah.
thanks. Can you try again?
For me, please.
Yeah.
Way ahead of me, aren't you? So they come back with this. Okay, well, thanks for trying, but still none the wiser really. You can start to see some patterns, but I'm not confident. Then, this is a bit more familiar. Thanks. Yeah, this is more what I'm used to. Reds and greens, trend arrows. Thank you. Yeah. So what are we going to go with then?
I'm still going fudge and whisper.
You're still getting fun.
We still want to see the PlotTheDots graph.
Okay.
Alright.
So they've never heard of
If
it.
you don't know how to do that, I've got a friend called Peter Lowe who can brilliant at it.
He'll even send you the spreadsheet.
I'll leave it right. So we've sent them the spreadsheet. We've now educated the team. We've sent them the spreadsheet, and they come back to you. We like that. Here you go. Is that what you wanted?
Ah.
So now, which two chocolate bars are you going to invest in to really boost their? Which need boosting in terms of their sales?
Caramel.
Caramel and fudge. Is that unanimous? Anyone disagree? Caramel and fudge? Yeah. You read that within, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 seconds. You looked at those 6 graphs and you made an educated decision based on what the data was telling you. That's the power of PlotTheDots. It turns numbers into information that you can actually use to make a decision. Now, to make it even clearer, we need a bit of narrative. So just numbers on their own, we don't speak in numbers really, we speak in English. So having some data numerically, accompanied with a bit of narrative, just to simply explain what it's telling us, is so much more powerful. It's a very often thing that we miss. Give people a load of data, a load of numbers, and expect them to understand it. So you might say we had 7 points above the mean line. That's what the spreadsheet told us. It triggered that special cause. And you could put that into English to say we've seen a significant improvement or decline since whatever date due to the following reason. Really clear, concise sentence to explain what the data is telling you. If the performance increased by 1% to 79%, but the indicator is common cause, then you might translate that for people a little bit and say there's been no significant change, the performance is about 79%. With a target in between the process limits, so you know what this means now, but not everyone does. The target is in between the process limit. Common cause variation could cause this indicator to pass or fail. We don't know. Let's put that a bit more friendly. Variation shows that the indicator will not reliably hit the target. So always think about trying to add some narrative that will mean something. So that's what the data used to like. Look how horrible that is now that you've seen what good looks like. There are still, unfortunately, hundreds of reports created, but they are gradually being transferred to PlotTheDots. So there was a decision a couple of years ago. The guy I mentioned from NHSEI came and did this presentation so well to the whole board. I was lucky enough to be sat in the corner. He held their attention for 60 minutes on data, and I was like, wow, I want to be able to do that. That was pretty cool. And the decision at the end, the chair, the chief exec, everyone was there, and they said, we just want to do it. So with immediate effect, our standard now, our standard way of reporting is going to be this PlotTheDots. But because there are hundreds, literally hundreds and hundreds of reports produced, it's taken quite a while to get through them all. They do use this style now in the board reports, in the performance reports the board look at, they use PlotTheDots. So it's you'll gradually start to see it more and more. So that was my whistle stop tour of the train. Any questions?